January 1993. It's a brand new year, folks. And I read 4 books in January of 1993. Can't really tell you much else about that time in my life. I don't recall what was going on. I was still in the construction business. So, again, probably either laid off or this might be the year I was working as a janitor at the local community college. I don't recall. So let's just jump into the books that I read in January of 1993. And the first one was Stitch by Mark Morris. This was from Del Abyss, and it's the main character is a guy named Dan Lasher, a college student, and there's this sort of devilish character, I suppose, called Stitch, who preys on the insecure, the young, and gives, it's one of those give you what you want kind of things, but of course there's going to be consequences. So Dan Latcher is Stitch's latest project, victim, whatever you want to call it. And of course he sort of reaps the benefits and the consequences. Being an Abyss book, it's bizarre. It's well, I was going to say strange, but that's the same as bizarre essentially. It gets into some interesting pleasure and pain, and Latcher gets maybe a cult following almost. It's been a long time, don't remember. Didn't realize I was reading Mark Morris back in 1993. If someone had asked, I would have said the first thing I read by him was, I believe, The Deluge. It's a leisure book, if I'm not mistaken. I do have a Mark Morris book. He wrote a Hellboy that I have. I haven't read it yet, a Hellboy novel. And he's written some Torchwood, which I have a couple of those. I don't know if his is one of them. I know one's Sarah Pinborough. But anyway, that's all neither here nor there. This is Stitch by Mark Morris. Another one I'd like to go back and read. I'm going through this list. I really just want to go back and look at all the Del Abyss books that I read and maybe read the ones that I missed. But anyway, the second book that I read in January 1993, Aliens, Earth Hive by Steve Perry. This is the first Aliens novel. I believe it's the first original Aliens novel, although I'm not sure if original is the right word, because I believe it's based on Dark Horse comic series. I could be completely wrong about that, because I didn't read the Dark Horse comics. But I think that's the case. And this is about a colonial marine and the young girl that he rescued from an alien infestation. And basically, they're stand-ins for Newt and Hicks from the movie Aliens. And years later, they go off on a mission. Somehow the government has found the original planet that the xenomorphs come from, and the American government wants a xenomorph. They're competing with Weyland Yutani. Basically everybody wants a xenomorph, and so this is the story of these two characters, these Newt and Hicks stand-ins, going off on this mission and all the shenanigans going on around them. I believe it's the first in a trilogy. I know Steve Perry wrote a ton of Aliens novels, and I think like the first 6 are 2 trilogies. But again, not 100% sure. Next up, we have Death's Door by John Woolley and Ron Wolfe. This is about a cop named Case Hamilton who dies and is brought back And this is essentially one of those something came back with him stories. He's not the same after he's been brought back from death. And that's, I don't remember whether I liked this or not. Although, man, every time I go through this list and I come across a book like this that I really don't remember, I feel like I want to go back and check it out again and see if it was good. Don't know. And finally, we have The Losers by David Eddings. Now, David Eddings, primarily known as a fantasy writer. I read the Belgariad series, 5 or 6 books. I believe that's the one that I read. Maybe some of his other stuff, but he's tons and tons of fantasy stuff. This is not that. This is an indictment, perhaps, of the social workers system. And the main character is Raphael Taylor. He's a guy that's got it all, and then he's in a horrible accident and loses a leg and perhaps more, and gets sort of ground up, I think, in the social services system. There's a lot more going on. He meets this guy that sort of leads, and their relationship sort of leads to the accident. And so Raphael, once he's in the social system, he ends up in this building with a bunch of, like petty criminals, drug users, the people that he calls the losers. And then this person from his past comes back, and it seems like this person is trying to destroy Raphael, but then they get caught up with the losers. And very, very interesting real world story from someone primarily who known as a fantasy writer. And again, one that I kind of want to go back and check out. As much as I enjoyed David Eddings' fantasy stuff, that's really not my bag at the moment, as the kids say. But this one, I'm intrigued. It definitely sounds like an interesting story. And I liked David Eddings' writing, so I assume I liked this. And that's it. That is all I have for January 1993. I guess, let's say my question for this video would be, what are your feelings when an author who is primarily known for a single type of writing or genre, when they step out of their comfort zone and do something completely different? Such as David Eddings here. I'm trying to think of an author that I could just sort of pluck out. Trying to think of an author that steadily writes in a single genre, essentially, because I would normally say Brian Keene, but he has done different things. Even Brian Smith pops to mind, but he's just not straight horror. He's done some crime stuff, over the top, but some crime fiction. Man, tougher question I thought, because off the top of my head, I can't think of an author that's just a single thing. But so I guess we could just use David Eddings. Aside from this single book, I can't think of a single David Eddings that isn't fantasy. Now, personally, I like authors, and I'll follow an author generally anywhere they decide to go. So, Brian Keene, I believe, is writing a straight Western. No horror elements, just a straight up Western. I'm going to read it. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to read it because I like Brian Keene. I like him as a storyteller. Love his horror stuff. He's done some fantasy stuff. I have the first 2. I don't think the third one's out yet. that he's co-written with Stephen Shrewsbury, I believe. But I haven't read those. I can't speak to those. But yeah, if Brian Keene writes a straight Western, I'm going to read that Western. Richard Matheson, known primarily as a sort of a fantasist, with books with fantastical elements in the science fiction horror realm. The Incredible Shrinking Man, I Am Legend, straight horror like The Legend of Hell House, tons of Twilight Zone episodes as well as Twilight Zone type stories. And he wrote some Westerns. Now, at least one of them did have fantastical supernatural elements, but a few of them were just straight Westerns. And the thing is, he's a great writer. His stories, his characters are compelling. And so those Westerns were, I like Westerns generally anyway, but they were good books. So, what are your thoughts on that? Are you more genre specific? If your favorite horror writer decides to write a mystery or a Western or a romance, are you going to go ahead and read that, even though it's not necessarily a genre that you would normally pick up? Or do you pass on that? And, no judgment there. There's so many great books to read. Just looking around, I can see the hundreds that I haven't read yet. So, no shame here if you decide, I've got so many books to read. I'm just going to pass. As much as I like this author, I'm going to pass on this Western that they did. I don't know why maybe because the splatter Westerns are right in my eye line. I keep going to that genre. But so do you read it? Do you not? What are your thoughts on that? Are you more genre specific, author specific? Same could be applied to movies. If let's say John Carpenter directed a rom-com, are you going to watch that because it's John Carpenter, or are you going to skip it because you're not a fan of rom-coms? Let me know in the comments below. And if you have any other comments or questions or corrections, put them in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. If you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is @Ronin5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, and fuzzy animals, is ErikSmith5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH 5757. That is all I've got for you this week. So until next week, read more books.